The NBS has again come out, and this time around, they are professing that there's good news. Nigeria's gross domestic product, the GDP, had a 3.84% increase in growth rate in the fourth quarter of 2024. And this is according to a GDP report published by the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, earlier today. It says that the growth rate is higher than the 3.46% recorded in the fourth quarter of 2024. And the figure released today of the Q4 of 2024 is also higher than the 3.46% reported in the fourth quarter of 2023. The performance of the GDP in the fourth quarter of 2024 was driven mainly by the services sector, which recorded a growth of 5.37% and contributed 57.38% to the aggregate GDP. So let's get some insight into what this means altogether. I'm being joined tonight on the program by Dr. Tope Fashola. He's a special advisor to the President on economic matters. It's indeed a pleasure having you join us tonight.
Thanks very much for inviting.
It does look like the last quarter of 2024 was a good way to end the year.
Oh, yeah.
As we now know, there are a lot of people who are still writhing in the pains of what the economy over the last few months have cost. But then, would you say we are setting out of the rubble because of some of the policy decisions, tough decisions they were, and we perhaps are seeing a brighter day?
I believe so, very strongly, and I think the growth rate will pick up even further as we go along. Yes, there may be a bit of slowdown in the first quarter of this year. Usually first quarters are a bit slow because a lot of spending gets done in December, which actually trickles off in January. But even at that, and I'm hoping that the rebased GDP comes out very quickly in time, maybe sometime in March, So, but even at that, I think that we've turned the corner for the economy. The reforms were very critical and very important, as you well know. But there's been some very good sides of the reforms. Of course, we're talking about the Naira reform. We're talking about the fuel subsidy reforms. The fuel subsidy reforms have unleashed a lot of good things in the petroleum sector, apart from also freeing up a lot of money for, to the states, to the federal, and also even now the local government. But you see that Nigeria has become something of a net exporter, even though we still import a bit, and I've seen that. But we're importing about 20 years low, or even 30 years low now. And of course, the target is zero importation. But the other time, you heard Dangote refineries exported jet fuel to Saudi Arabia, no less than Saudi Aramco, perhaps the biggest oil company in the world. So I think we're getting into that international space as well as a country, driven by that gentleman I mentioned. But also, we see that even NNPC, which is a state-owned company, is also trying to pull his weight. It's going to be a little bit choppy for now, but just trying to pull his weight. Everybody's under pressure. That's as far as the petroleum sector is concerned. On the on the removal of subsidy, of course, we'll talk about that. On the management of the foreign exchange, what has happened is we hit an inflection point where behaviors have started to be affected. So it used to be that, of course, I was recently with someone who traveled to abroad and said, look, I'm not going to shop when I go this time. I'd rather buy what I want in this country. And so we're looking at options and different alternatives to things that we used to buy from abroad. So that's the way people should think. And I think this time around, we're getting to that point. And indeed, it's very important for me to address this somewhat pervasive sense of pessimism, and of course it's easy to just blot it out and say, there's so much problem in the country, people are just suffering and so on. Everybody should reposition. There's no country in the world where nobody is suffering. If you went to some of the best countries in the world, you see it on the streets, I wouldn't say too much about that. But everybody should try and reposition and ensure that they're doing something productive. They're trying to get involved, open your eyes, stay positive. And I think there won't be anything too wrong sometimes, even if we in government would try and admonish people constantly and push them and nudge them.
So you're saying that Nigerians should tighten their belt?
Not tighten their belt. This is not the time to tighten. Just Just position yourself for the goodies. Don't wake up in the morning and say, oh my God, the country is falling over everybody and so on. People are making money. Businesses are getting done. What has happened in this petroleum sector, as I mentioned, with Dangote coming up, employing maybe 20 to 30,000 people in that, that place in Bejuleki, has opened up the entire Bejuleki. Property prices are going up. Small businesses have set up around there. People are renting, and when you rent and you move in there, you need drivers, you need cooks, this is employment. So what has happened as a result of that reform in the oil sector alone has employed, when I did the calculation, anything between 200 and 400,000 new people. Even in the Port Harcourt and the worry that they are trying to reposition. We know what that means if a refinery was totally dead, but all of a sudden you see some activity, meaning that, worry used to, they used to rue the day that because of a lot of ethnic crisis in that region, Shell moved out of worry. But now, if this refinery will really take off, some activity will come back to worry, and that's the way it works.
Let me take you on some reality check. Dr. Fasua. And I think that it is also fundamental, as much as I try on this program to break down the issues in such a way that we touch on what is practical and reality rather than talking on the technical jargons. The president came into power and he knocked on the very foundation of our economy. He made some policy decisions that went to the very root of the system. And there are those who will say the needs of a human, they are basic. When you are able to deal with those needs, perhaps in order of priority, you'll be able to get yourself going. So people will talk about transportation. People will talk about food prices. People will talk about cost of living, prices of commodities. These things were badly impacted. So the low-hanging fruit are what people are asking for. The average person, which are in the majority, if they are not feeling it in the immediate, how longer should they wait, Dr. Fasua, for those who are listening to you tonight to say, yes, this policy, this figure, just for a moment, okay, these figures are showing that things are getting in the positive, but the average person is perhaps not feeling it just yet. Therefore, how much longer should they wait? Therefore,
nobody is asking anybody to, look, get me very, very correctly. And I didn't come to say, go and tighten your belt, wait for Govt and all of that, And what I've said very clearly here is that the opportunities are there. Open your eyes and stay positioned. Look, if somebody makes themselves unemployable, they're going to have issues. But if you avail yourself, okay, there are even if you was training, there are free training all over the internet that people use. So either you are using the time to abuse the government and abuse the big men or wherever they are on the internet, or you are taking a training to reposition yourself for better employment, So times have changed, So nobody is saying that the people should continue to suffer. No, I'm saying that already, and mind you, of course, this is in the realm of cognitive dissonance, people will usually say when they're suffering. But when people get advantage, you won't hear anything. In this same country, somebody lost $3.something billion, $1 million, which was equivalent of 6 billion naira. And he lost it, a comedian or something, lost the money on FX gamble. Indeed, that's what I call it. People do FX trading and all of that. And that's 6 billion. Now, you would have known that someone in that realm had 6 billion. And of course, he still has some more money today. And how many people are sitting on such kind of money? So we're not saying that people should continue to suffer. We're saying that already the economy is ticking up. Look, 3.46, 3.84. Likelihood of we're going to get into 4-5% growth rate in the next quarter or two. We're going to probably, when we're looking at the rebasing that we're talking about, is about looking at where the economy really is now. People want to disparage it. You can't disparage it because
is this something that needed to have been done? A rebasing of the GDP too.
Sorry.
Is this administration planning a rebasing of the GDP?
Are you kidding me? We've been on it for more than 6 months, right? Carefully being put together. The MBS is doing their work. Okay, we've talked about the inflation rebasing, CPI rebasing a couple of weeks. Nobody should say that we shouldn't look at where our balance sheet is as an organization, as a government, as a country. It's about looking at where your balance sheet is, doing the revaluation. Even if you're in the private sector, running a company, you would have to do it. We ought to have done this 6 years ago. 6 years ago. So now let's say, okay, where are we today? What is the economy doing? How much is services contributing? Have we done a little bit better on the industry? What about trade and all of that? And then we put out the numbers. And if you look at it very carefully, the reforms that Mr. President has carried out, which is something that a lot of governments have not been able to do in the past, was to give us that reality check and to say, you know what, let's step back a little bit so that we can run even faster. And I think that that's when you say, okay, now, game on. Let's see how much of the $1 trillion we can meet in 2030. If we can get to 700, 750, nobody will say we failed. So that's how it is. So we're lucky we have a strong leader who actually is prepared for the job. Of course, there'll be issues of income inequality, but let me tell you what, Mr. President has taken that initiative. The minimum wage is now 70,000 naira. A lot of the states are doing 80,000 naira minimum wage, and they've also started paying that, meaning that money is going out. The states are sitting on a lot of cash now to not only pay their obligations, salaries, pensions, and what have you, but to also do a lot of local infrastructure.
Dr.
We're sitting on an effort where we could have an infrastructure explosion in this country, especially at the state and local government.
You've not quite answered my question.
No, because my question was wrong.
No, hold on.
Certainly.
My question was, you probably didn't get it. My question really is, you are an economist, and projection is part of what you do.
Absolutely.
And you do that a lot of the time.
Yes.
I wanted you to be able to paint a projection picture for the Nigerian people.
Absolutely.
Who perhaps are seeing a growth rate that is beneficial and positive in the Q4 of 2024.
Right.
And it means that whatever will happen in the morning, perhaps in the night, you might have a signal of whatever happens in the morning, what happened in the night, you will see the signs during the day. So the question is that there are a lot of expectations. Things might be difficult for a lot of people right now. I wanted you to paint a picture and maybe give a lot of Nigerians who are watching tonight a kind of a promissory note to say, in the next 3 months, in the next 5 months, these are the possibilities. These are what your government is doing that will help the Nigerian people. First of all, that is what I was asking of you.
I get you, man. And that is my work. I wake up every day. I'm full of hope. I was in France a couple of days back. I literally ran out of that country because all I saw was a lot of hopelessness in the city of Paris. Everywhere was painted over with graffiti. There seemed to be a war on the streets, and I came into this country, and as I was coming into this country, I was feeling the hope, and I saw a virgin country where we could do a whole lot for our people, and we have started. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that, first of all, Nigerians look within, first and foremost, position for the benefits of this country. This whole idea of running away from the country, it's a joke anyway. When they get there, they quickly realize
so that is not.
It's a joke. Honestly, right now,
people should not seek a better life.
Anymore. You can better life in the temporary. It's not that you're looking temporary, you're looking long term. But long term, this is where we are. This is where we were born. I'm not one of those Kenny Badenosh people who would say it's nasty things about their country. There's hope in this country. And I'm saying that, look, let's even take the game first to the states. Lagos State is running a 3.3 trillion budget, and the commissioners came out a couple of weeks back and said, listen, we're going to run this budget without borrowing a dime. Nasarawa State has said they will not borrow. Enugu State will say they will not borrow. 5 states are on record to say, look, we can run our budget, we don't even have to borrow into the medium term. You know what I'm saying? That means that maybe a little bit of nudge to those state governors to say, okay, where are we spending the money? How can we get position? That is where the game is right now. Beyond the federal government. The federal government is there to think about policy, to think about big projects. You want to run a road between Lagos to Sokoto, Lagos to Calabar. Let the federal government deal with those things. But when you're talking about, the nitty-gritty that affects the people, first of all, how many of the states have not started paying the minimum wage? How many are owing pensions? Put them under pressure. Some of the states are getting _3 what they were getting a couple of years ago. And that's where, I think that you should also put some of the states under pressure, because there's a lot they can do in terms of local infrastructure, which opens things up, assists the farmers to get their crops to the city, get into the value chain and earn some money. And look, a lot is happening. Cocoa was the best commodity for the whole of 2024. Cocoa did better than gold. There's a clip online here. Somebody from Midori, you know, the state where I'm from, and you know, as the truck was going, the guy was saying, "Listen, this is 400 million." A local guy said, "This is the money we spend in those states. This is Midori." People are repositioning.
Quickly,
you know, the only challenge you will probably find is that, unlike in the 70s and 80s, when our fathers used the cocoa money to build their petesi, what we call petesi, upstairs that had wooden, that had the wooden, what's it called, decking, you know, that had the wooden decking. Now there's a lot more externality. People, their money is going on outside. People using money to bet. People trying to build houses in London or buy houses in America. It's a lot easier now, and these are the things that we think about as economists for our country in this contemporary time.
We need to close now.
There's a lot of hope for this economy.
We need to close.
And people should just stay positive.
We need to close now. For example, end of Q1, end of Q2. What are the expectations? Because this government must project.
Absolutely.
What are the figures? What are the expectations?
Well, it's a bit difficult to just say any kind of figures. Now, if in the Q1, if the Q1 would come out, you know, on the current basis for the GDP, I think it could dip a little bit to maybe 3.5%. But by Q2, I think we're going to begin to think about 4.5%. As things stand, you know, and in fact it could be a whole lot better, because I think by then the rebase numbers should come up, and you know, from the current $258 billion for the economy, which could be looking at about $400 to $450 billion for the economy, and back to #1 position, at the minimum #2 position in Africa. We're a great country with great prospects, and I think that I would want to urge you, Sheung, stay positive. Always give the people the positive angle for the economy. It's the easiest thing to do. You say, oh, the country is falling, but this country hasn't even started. We're just about starting, you know, this economy, and luckily, with a strong leader like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I believe that we're going to get somewhere. Thank you very much.
Dr. Tokwe Fasuwa is a special advisor to President Bola Tinubu on economic matters. Thanks so much indeed. We are hopeful for our country, and we are hoping that the leaders will take the bull by the horn and do the right thing.
States.
Yeah, states too. They are part of the leaders.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Fasuwa.